Hello everyone, this is Mr. Underkoffler, and today we're going to be looking at the worksheet called Mixed Review, Adding and Subtracting Integers. Some helpful tips. The only problems that we ever rewrite as adding the opposite are subtraction problems. And that's because only subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. We would never say addition is the same as adding the opposite because that would not be true. Only subtraction happens to be the same as adding the opposite. And therefore, when we see subtraction problems with positives and negatives involved, we are going to make it adding the opposite, which will then allow us to just use the adding positive and negative rules, which will make it less for us to remember. But we therefore have to realize that we will never, ever, we will not rewrite problems that have addition in between the integers. Again, we will only rewrite problems that have subtraction. We will make those become adding the opposite. And so let's just do 4 problems together from the beginning of this worksheet, and then we'll have you do the rest on your own, starting with problem number 1. Let me point out the obvious. In between the integers, what do we have? Well, you can see here we have addition. This is not a subtraction symbol, this is addition. So what did we just talk about? We are not going to rewrite problems that have addition in between. We're just going to keep it the way they are. And we're just going to use the rules of adding positive and negative numbers. We have learned that when you have an addition problem of a negative and a positive, you will subtract in your head or off to the side. So 8 minus 1 is 7, 6 minus 2 is 4. That's going to give us 47. Now, why is it positive? Because the positive number from the original problem, 68, has the bigger absolute value. All right, with that in mind, taking a look at problem number 2, we have negative 21 plus negative 68. Once again, what is in between the integers? It's a plus sign. So there is no reason then we should rewrite this as adding the opposite, because we only do that when there's subtraction in between. We are just going to now use the rules of what you do when you have a negative plus a negative. And we have learned that is when you're going to add their absolute values in your head. So 1 plus 8 is 9. 2 plus 6 is 8. The answer stays negative because the negative plus a negative will still give you a negative. So quickly contrast here. Problem number 1, negative plus positive, we subtracted in our head. But problem number 2, negative plus negative, we add in our head. And by the way, if you ever need to do the addition or subtraction off to the side, I've given you space to do that on these problems. But let's take a look at problem number 3. What do we have in between? Subtraction. And what have we learned? We have learned that we are supposed to rewrite subtraction as adding the opposite, so that way we can use the addition rules to easily finish the problem. So let's do that right now. The first number stays the same, so negative 21 is still going to be negative 21. But we are going to rewrite subtraction of the negative 68 as adding a positive 68. This is the idea of making subtraction become adding the opposite of the number that was to the right of that subtraction. Opposite of a negative is a positive. Now that we have done that, we can stop looking at the original problem. In fact, I'm just going to lightly scribble it out here. I don't want you to scribble it out, but I just don't want you to look at it anymore. And we're going to look at what we have remaining. We have a negative plus a positive. Well, we had that back on number 1, didn't we? Oh, you see what I did? Number 3 ends up becoming the same as number 1 because now it's negative 21 plus positive 68, just like number 1. So we're going to subtract in our head, get the answer of positive 47 because 68, which was positive, has the bigger absolute value. So therefore, the final answer is also positive. And then problem number 4, what do we have in between the integers? Well, as you can see, once again, just like problem number 3, we have subtraction. What do we do with subtraction? We know it is the same as adding the opposite. So let's do that right now. Negative 21 stays negative 21. We are going to make the subtraction become addition, and the number that was to the right of it, which used to be a positive 68, now becomes its opposite, making it negative 68. That's the idea of making subtraction become adding the opposite. And then once you do that, like I was telling you on number 3, you can stop looking at the original problem. Again, you don't actually have to scribble it out. Just stop looking at it. Look what we have now. Negative plus a negative. Hey, that reminds me of problem number 2. Oh, you see what I did again? Number 4 ends up just like number 2. Kind of like number 3 ended up like number 1. Now, you should not expect that type of thing to happen on this entire worksheet. I was just being a little creative here. But yeah, number 4 ends up being like number 2. So negative plus negative, add in your head. Answer stays negative, and we get negative 89. All right, let's see if you can do the next 4 problems on your own. Pay attention to when there's subtraction in between. That's when you do make it adding the opposite. And when there's addition in between, those are the ones we will not make adding the opposite. All right, do these 4 problems right now on your own. Hit pause in the video so you have time to do them, and then hit play when you're ready to see how you did. All right, I hope you have already done these 4 problems on your own. If not, you better hit pause now because I'm about to go over them. Problem number 5, notice what's in between, subtraction. We need to make subtraction become adding the opposite. So check it out. The subtraction became addition. Here, I'll highlight that for you. Subtraction becomes addition, and the sign of the number to the right of it, which used to be negative, now becomes its opposite, which is a positive. And then stop looking at the original problem. Look at what we have now, 54 plus positive 44. Well, positive plus positive, that's like old school elementary school. Just add. So 4 plus 4 is 8. 5 plus 4 is 9. That's going to give you 98. Problem number 6. This one has subtraction in between. So let's do it again, just like we did on number 5. Subtraction becomes adding the opposite. First number stays the same. Subtraction becomes addition. And the number that was to the right of the subtraction, which used to be a positive 54, now becomes its opposite, negative 54. All right, stop looking at the original problem. What do we have now? Positive plus negative. Oh, that was like number 1, wasn't it? Where we had positive plus negative, and we subtracted in our head. So we're going to do that right now on problem number 6. This is going to give you negative 10. Now, why is it negative and not positive? Check it out. The negative 54 wins, so to speak. It has the bigger absolute value when compared to positive 44. Whichever number has the original, or sorry, not from the original problem, but from the newly rewritten part, adding the opposite. Whichever number has the bigger absolute value determines the sign of the answer. Okay, problem number 7. We do not have subtraction in between. We have addition, so do not rewrite this problem. If you did, hit pause now and erase it, fix it. Same thing's going to be true for number 8. This one also had addition in between. Do not ever rewrite addition. Only subtraction can become adding the opposite because only subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. Okay, so number 7. What do? Negative plus positive, subtract in your head. This actually ends up being the same as number 6, kind of. I mean, the order was different, but the order doesn't really matter with addition, does it? Negative 54 still has the bigger absolute value, so the answer is still negative. And since it was a negative plus a positive, that's why we subtract. Different signs. Subtract in your head, negative 10. And finally, problem number 8. Hopefully you did not rewrite it at all because there was addition in between, not subtraction. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the signs of the numbers. Negative plus negative. This is very different than number 7, which was negative plus positive, where you would subtract. When it's a negative plus a negative, you're going to add in your head. So that's going to give you negative 98. All right, there are many more problems to go on this worksheet, but I do not need to take my time going through every single one like I did here on 1 through 8. This is a mixed review. Hopefully by now you guys get the idea. So use the solutions that I provided for you in Canvas or on paper in class, and that way you can check your work and answers for the remaining problems on the worksheet. All right, thanks for watching this video. We'll see you next time.